Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. Today on the show, we're going to talk a little about tiling. And I know we've spent quite a bit of time talking about tiling over the last few years, but it's incredibly important. We've had a couple of dry years prior to this year, but now this year is one of the wettest years that we've had here in many years.
Well, there's definitely going to be a lot of tiling done, but we still have a long ways to go on these soybeans, and there are some weeds popping up even this late in the year. We're going to talk about late season weed escapes in soybeans.
As always, we've got a Weed of the Week coming up later in the show, and Iron Talk too. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about why some farmers remove their wheat straw and others leave it out in the field.
Well, when you think about wheat straw, it is a valuable commodity, whether you bale it up and sell it off for feed or bedding, or if you leave it in the field to try to build your fertility and, more importantly, organic matter out in your soils.
I don't know if I'd say more importantly organic matter, Darren. There are two different things here that Darren just mentioned. It's the fertility side and the organic matter. Just keep in mind that the wheat straw is not organic matter yet. What that is organic material. To become organic matter that's really valuable in that soil, that residue has to break down, get down into the soil, decompose. It takes time for that to happen. In the meantime, we're going to see nutrients being released out of that straw because there are a lot of nutrients in there, including N, P, and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. But in addition to that, there are things like sulfur and micronutrients that are incredibly important to the next crop. So the main reason why a lot of farmers like to leave the straw in the field is if they take that straw away, they know they're also taking nutrients away, and then they're going to have to put more fertility out for next year's crop.
Well, it used to be just a little bit different. When we were growing up on the farm, we always had cattle and hogs, and we had livestock pens that we liked to use wheat straw for bedding. So we would put this bedding down in the pens, like in the hog pens, for example. When I was a kid, one of my daily jobs was every day I would have to go clean out all that wheat straw that the hogs had been laying on overnight and probably made a mess out of. I'd clean that out each day. I'd put new wheat straw down for them to lay in. It was really nice. We kept our animals very healthy that way, and for the most part pretty clean that way. And then what would happen when we'd scoop that wheat straw out with the manure and everything else, we just spread that back out in the same field. So yes, we were taking residue off the field, but Dad's purpose was, well, I'm going to take it off the field, but I'm going to put it back out there with that manure. So we'll also get some more fertility that we're putting back out in the field. If you're in that situation where you're looking at, okay, I'm going to remove residue, but I am going to put the manure back from the livestock that either ate that straw or used it as bedding and then kind of combined it with manure to put it back out in the field, that's a good thing. It's where we were taking that residue off and not putting it back in the field. I know growing up, we would bale up all this wheat straw. It was one of Brian and my favorite jobs in the heat of the summer. And sometimes Dad would get an offer from somebody that maybe didn't raise any small grains that year, and they'd say, man, I really need some bedding. Can I buy a few hundred bales from you? And we would sell some bales. In that case, we're taking residue off, it's leaving the farm, and then we'd look at those fields. Wow, we don't have any residue out there. We aren't doing anything to build our organic matter up in our soils, and long term, that's not a great strategy.
Over the last few years, the cost of plant food has gone up so dramatically that farmers had to charge 3 or 4 times what they were charging just a few years ago for straw bales. So pretty soon, if a farmer wasn't looking at this real close, he was actually charging less for the straw than what it was costing him to put the fertility back out there, and that's the last thing that any farmer ever wants to have happen. But this just really hammers home the point that, hey, as a farmer, you've got to constantly look at the economics and decide if you're selling nutrients in effect off your field, what's it going to cost to replace those nutrients?
Hey, one thing we should add too, Brian, is, okay, so you've got nutrients in the straw, and a lot of times we'll look at, well, what does the crop remove from our soil? And we'll look at like our Ag PhD fertilizer removal app, where we could look at, say, 100 bushel wheat, and you can see how many nutrients leave in the grain portion that we harvest, and then how many nutrients it takes to raise that stover. That's not necessarily the same amount of pounds of nutrients that are still in that stover at harvest time. The other thing to kind of point out is this. Let's say that you harvest that field and you leave the stover lay out there for a while, and you get a few rains on that stover. That rain can actually wash out some of the nutrients out of that stover, like potassium most notably. So let's just say that you were going to bale stover up and you wanted to minimize the amount of fertility in the stover. You can just leave the stover out in your field for a little while, get a rain or two on it, let it flush some of the nutrients out, and then bale it up. That might be a strategy too.
Well, once again, there is a reason why some farmers like to leave the straw in their field, but certainly if a farmer can get a lot of money for his straw by selling it off, he can do that. He just has to understand that he's got to replace those nutrients.
One other thing farmers are focused on in their fields is weed control. Can you identify this week's Weed of the Week?
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Xtend soybeans will provide tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate and will be built on the Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield trait. See them in action at xtendfollowafield.com.
Get the most from the genetic potential in your crops, reduce plant stress, and increase yield. BioForge upregulates key genes to keep roots growing and reduce ethylene for improved plant stress tolerance. BioForge mixes well with other products for easy application with every pass through the field. BioForge, progressive growers' choice to improve root growth, reduce crop stress, and increase yield. Make every growing day count with BioForge from Stoller, USA.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
The Case IH Summer Sales Event is going on now, meaning you can turn the heat into red-hot savings. That's because all Farmall and Maxim Series tractors, along with our complete line of hay tools, are available with 0% financing for 60 months. But hurry, because while the Summer Sales Event is just warming up, it only lasts until September 30th, 2014. For more information, visit your local Case IH dealer or go to caseih.com/special offers.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
Once it gets late in the season in soybeans, it's difficult to get great weed control out there and not damage the soybeans a little bit, but that's what farmers are trying to do in some cases.
You know what, Brian? I would say this too. We're seeing huge differences this year where pre-emerge herbicides were used, and also we're seeing big differences where one pre-emerge herbicide was used versus 2 or 3, as we've been talking about the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely, especially as you get later on in the season with soybeans. The thing you got to remember is with corn plants, they give you crop canopy so much earlier in the season. Same thing with a wheat crop. When you get crop canopy, that's the best weed killer there is. When you have crops like soybeans and sunflowers that don't offer great early season crop canopy, what that means is your residual products have to do a lot of work. And in some cases, if you don't have more than one pre-emerge herbicide out there in soybeans and sunflowers, those types of crops, you're just not going to have enough residual control to get you up to canopy, especially as you go into wider rows. So this is why later on in the season, a lot of farmers do have quite a few weed escapes.
You know, a couple of things worthy of mention here is fertility made a huge difference this year. A lot of areas across the country had some heavy early season rains. Where there was good fertility, the crop really took off once the sun came back out, and those fields shaded out the rows much quicker. On our farm, we did some 10-inch rows this year compared to 30-inch rows, like you were mentioning with that row spacing, made a huge difference. And then also, we saw a number of farmers varying planting population this year, going back up from some of the low planting rates like 120,000 plants per acre in a 30-inch row, back up to that 150, 160, maybe even a little bit more. And that made a big difference too. You can really see the rows filled in much more quickly and the weed escapes were much fewer.
Yeah, so this is one of the things, you know, it's not all about what herbicide you use. It is sometimes just about, hey, let's try to raise as good a crop as we can, get that crop up and growing. And once you do that, it's going to shade out those weeds and kill the weeds all by itself. But let's talk about at this point in the year, what are you going to do? How are you going to get herbicide control? One of the things you may have to consider is calling in a plane. If you've got narrow rows and you don't have tram lines like we do on our farm with our drill, you know, to drive down drilled beans this late in the year, I sure wouldn't do it. I'd call in the plane and have that flown on. The number one weed I'm looking at right now is actually volunteer Roundup Ready corn. Another thing that happened this year, because of all the rain, because of all the volunteer Roundup Ready corn, because we had 2 flushes in so many fields, there are many of the good volunteer corn products that got sold out as we went throughout the season. There are a few that are still left out there. Just keep in mind that there are many different products you can use. Make sure though, if you're spraying taller corn, you use a little higher rate.
The other thing is look at that rate and talk to your agronomist, because you may be used to using, say, Select Max, for example, and you can't find any more of that, but you can find generic Select. Those are completely different products. They've got much different use rates. So make sure if you are switching around between different products on volunteer corn control that you're using the right one. The other thing is we've seen huge differences this year in using the right additives versus no additives versus the wrong additives. What I'm mainly talking about here is if you think, okay, I'm using it with a loaded glyphosate, I'll just tell you right now, if you want good volunteer corn control, that's not enough surfactant and it's not the right surfactant to make the volunteer corn herbicides work. Using non-ionic surfactant is definitely an improvement, and we've seen the best control where we're using like a crop oil, for example, at about 1 gallon per 100. Some will use up to 1 quart per acre. It just depends on where you're at, what your weather's like. But using some oil really seems to improve the effectiveness of these products. But again, there's so many different volunteer corn products. Make sure you work with your agronomist on the specific product that you're using.
When it comes to broadleaf control this late in the season, it's really tough. Most of the products, let's face it, you probably shouldn't even use them because you're either going to damage the soybeans or you're going to leave carryover for next year. FlexStar, for example, has a 10-month rotational restriction to corn. And I know a lot of people love to use FlexStar. We like to use it on our farm too if we have some water hemp or pigweed, even ragweed escapes early on in the season. But this late in the year, there's absolutely no way I'd ever use FlexStar or generic FlexStar. There's just too much risk for carryover.
The other thing you have to look at is the pre-harvest interval on a number of these products. Now, some of them will say you can't use them after the soybeans are blooming, so obviously those products are out. But even if you could use those products relatively safely this late in the season in soybeans, you have to watch that pre-harvest interval.
I'm not that worried about the pre-harvest interval though. We've still got plenty of time until harvest. It's not that big a concern, but it's certainly something that you can talk to your agronomist about if you're worried about it, if you're expecting an early harvest in your area.
You know, when we think about which weed species are popping up late, the regular culprits are out there, the palmer, pigweed, and tall water hemp, but there are some other weeds too, like black nightshade. We've gotten quite a few calls about black nightshade around the country. You know, everybody's been focused on pigweed.
All right, well, let's
run
through, but let's run through very specifically. If you've got nightshade out there this late in the year, Pursuit would be the best way to go, but just understand, Pursuit or Raptor, but just understand they're not very good at killing nightshade that's over 3 inches tall. The residual, though, certainly would help out on anything yet to come during the season. And then if you've got these pigweed or ragweed species that are popping up this late, I'd probably go with Cobra or Cadet. They're both going to burn the beans, but that's just the way it goes. You have to hope that you're going to get some rain after you spray, and then things will turn out all right. The big thing you're weighing out here is it worth it to spray versus how much damage are these weeds going to do? If you've got a lot of weeds out there, they really can still hurt your yield. So you want to try to get them controlled if you have enough.
Okay, here's another question for you. Lamb's quarters. You could use something like Harass. It doesn't have any soil residual, but is it going to be too hard on the beans this late?
That's just something you have to weigh out. No, I don't want to spray Harass this late in the year. That's the old Pinnacle, if you remember that from 20, 25 years ago. But I would do it if I had lots of lamb's quarters out there. So it's a real judgment call when you get to this late in the season with all these broadleaf weeds. With the volunteer corn, absolutely spray. It costs $2 or $3 an acre to spray, nothing to it, and it's going to be pretty safe for the soybeans.
Well, to wrap things up, just keep in mind, if you've got some late season weed escapes, there are things that can be done for next year's crop so you don't run into this again, including increasing planting population, narrowing the row spacing up, improving fertility so we can get better early crop canopy, and then of course using the 3 pre-emerge strategy that we've been outlining for the last couple of years, where we get multiple modes of action, multiple sites of action out early. That's going to improve the length of control in your field until hopefully you get that canopy.
Well, having late season great weed control is important in soybeans and just about any crop, especially if you've got our Weed of the Week. We'll talk about how to control this tough weed coming up later in the show.
We know that the future is liquid. Agriculture liquid fertilizers' constant research and development creates next-generation products that seem like science fiction. But the fact is, the yields, the sustainability, the food and fiber that our customers produce season after season is not a dream, but a reality. Agriculture liquid fertilizers, helping you grow the future.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
The world of farming is changing. Titan Machinery and Case IH are here to make sure you're ready. The demands on agriculture keep growing. The challenge for producers is to continue to keep pace. To be successful, you'll need equipment that can get the most out of every inch of land, innovations that help you work faster, and advice from people who know your field as well as they know your equipment. Don't get left behind. Be ready with Case IH and Titan Machinery. Better solutions.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave P. Most of your applied P gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more P available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing P availability can lead to increased P uptake in the plant. That's more P, and more P. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your P with Avail.
The Ag PhD Field Day is coming up on Thursday, July 24th on the Hefty Farm near Baltic, South Dakota. You'll see test plots, trials, and research. You'll hear great guest speakers including Coach Bobby Knight, race car driver Richard Petty, and corn, soybean, and wheat yield champs from across the country. There are also sessions on estate planning, drainage law, and soils. This one-day event is the largest private farm field day in the United States, and it's all designed to help you learn more about raising better crops and earning more income on your farm. Go to agphd.com to learn more.
At this time of the year, it's a great time to do some tiling on your farm, especially right after wheat harvest.
Well, sometimes you think, I just got my crop done, I need to take a little break here. But by the same token, when are you going to get the drain tile work done? When you compare to doing tiling after corn harvest, say in November, it's pretty cold, and jumping down into that hole as you're making connections with water in there and it's 40 degrees out, that's not very pleasant. When it's 80 degrees out or more, dealing with a little water, a little mud's no big deal.
Okay, so here's the reason why we're talking about this today. Over the last couple of years, we had a lot of farmers say, oh, I don't know if I need tile now, it's getting dry. Oh, really? Well, we've had 2 dry years, no, 3 dry years in the last 25. Okay, so, you know, we've had all kinds of rain this summer in most areas. On our farm in June, in the first 3 weeks of June, we had more rainfall than we did the whole year in 2013 and the whole year in 2012. It was unbelievable how much rain we had, and all of a sudden, all these areas that were dry, they were sopping wet. So anywhere that we had tile, we were super happy. felt really good about it, but for the guys that procrastinated, didn't put the tile in when they had the chance, now they're really wishing, oh boy, I really should have done that. Well, here's another opportunity coming up. Things did turn a little bit drier in July, and there are a lot of opportunities after taking a wheat crop off, and maybe even just going through some standing crop to get that job done. Because the sooner you get that tile in the ground, the sooner you're going to start making money off that tile. Everybody worries about, oh, I got to tear a little crop up. Who cares in the grand scheme of things? That tile's going to be in the ground for 50, 80 years. So when you look at it in the big picture, get the tile in as soon as you can. All right, here's the main thing that I wanted to talk about today. In a lot of those spots Darren's discussing when we saw those big rains come, it's the potholes. And so a lot of guys think, well, you know what? I'm just going to put a riser in there, put an inlet in there. In other words, have my nice tile line below ground, and then I'm going to put this riser going right up to the soil surface. And so when we do get these rains ponding up in the potholes, it's going to run right down to the tile line. Do not do that. That is absolutely not the way to go. Don't ever forget that as farmers, we are absolutely under attack from non-farmers. If you look at the number of farmers who farm 1,000 acres or more that are left in this country, it's 0.05% of the population. In fact, less than 0.05% of the population. There are only a few of us out here. The other people all have the votes. And if we do things to flood people out, if we do things to pollute the environment, we're done. They're going to outlaw tile. We're in big time trouble. And all it takes is get rid of the risers. Just have a different system in there. All you need to do is run a nice tile line, not just to the center of the pothole, but all the way through it, all the way up the side hill on the other side of this pothole, and then run a bunch of lateral lines in there at 10 or 15 foot spacing and 2 or 2.5 feet deep. You do that, and yes, you won't get rid of the water quite as fast as having a riser, but it'll be pretty quick. It should be quick enough in almost every case to not only save the crop, but raise a great crop. And then because of this, we're not increasing flooding, we're not increasing erosion, and we're not increasing downstream water quality issues. So if you have good tile done the right way with no risers, you absolutely, look at the numbers, you're going to dramatically decrease flooding in your whole area, you're going to improve the downstream water quality, and you're going to dramatically reduce erosion.
So now is the time to get tile in as crops start to come off. Get back out in those fields, improve those areas of fields that really need drainage, or if you're putting in a pattern system, that's fine too.
It's also the time to control our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to do it coming up next.
Your time is valuable. That's why you need a Hagie STS application system. Hagie STS products are designed for precision and efficiency, allowing you to make applications all season long with just one machine. Contact your Hagie rep today.
Our Weed of the Week is wild sunflower.
All right, if you're a sunflower producer, we don't want to offend you too much. We're not trying to kill your crop. What we are trying to do though is kill those volunteers or just regular wild sunflower when it does show up in the next crop. This is not a real difficult weed to identify. Some people will confuse it for cocklebur early in the season, but when you get sunflower plants, especially when you get any size to them, it's real easy to figure out what they are.
Well, when you look at the differences between the two, with cockleburs, if you look up the stem, a lot of times it'll look kind of like a leopard. Lots of little black spots going up. With sunflower, you're going to have some stiff, bristly hairs as you're going up that stalk, but it's not going to be discolored like a cocklebur would.
It used to be difficult to stop sunflowers in crops like soybeans, but now we have quite a number of options. Roundup is still real good at controlling sunflowers, even at a normal rate, but if you want to use something pre-emerge, Python is not too bad, Pursuit is okay. You've got some options pre-emerge. Just understand that sunflowers can germinate deeper in the soil, so it's hard to get control with a pre-emerge herbicide. What I would focus on, instead of worrying about the pre's, is I would save my Pursuit for post, and we actually probably like First Rate even a little bit better than Pursuit or Raptor.
That's right where I was going to go, and there are premixes that have Pursuit and First Rate in them. We really like to save those chemistries for post-emerge.
In corn, it's pretty easy to control this weed. Now, we've had some issues with dicamba-tolerant sunflowers. You can spray 3/4 of a pint or a pint of dicamba, and it will probably knock it down, in other words, Banville or Clarity, but it's been taking sometimes all the way up to that full pint to get decent control. So a half a pint in our area isn't working anymore. But if you go with Status, if you use Loudus, Impact, Callisto, Armazon, even Buctril, I mean, we have so many options.
And then heat them up with a little bit of atrazine too. That seems to improve control. Even a quarter to a half a pound of atrazine is generally enough to heat these products up and do a nice job on wild sunflower.
In wheat, our best suggestion is sharpen pre-emerge and then come with husky post-emerge. Sunflower isn't a real big problem in wheat most of the time though.
Well, that's all time we have for this week's weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Our industry-leading SCR technology has powered over 35,000 pieces of equipment with over 17 million operating hours in North America alone. Case IH, proven power, proven efficiency, proven in the field.
When seeding cover crops, how do you get a blend spread evenly across the field? We'll tackle that in today's Iron Talk. When we seed a cover crop, we use a blend and put it in the drill and hope for the best. To be fair, we aren't doing a huge amount of acres. Plus, since we aren't harvesting a cover crop, we aren't super worried about having an ideal mix through the whole field. Here are the drawbacks to doing things this way. You planted a blend for a reason, and the benefits aren't equally distributed in the field. Uneven growth this year could lead to uneven growth of your crop next year. Uneven growth leads to uneven residue distribution. However, the benefits of doing it how we do it is that it's inexpensive and easy for us to do this way. The guys who are doing big acres of cover crops and seeing the best responses are using air carts and air drills to seed the crop the right way. With 3 compartment carts, they can get a very accurate spread of 3 different cover crops with dramatically different seed sizes. If you have the equipment to accomplish this, there's no question it's the ideal way to seed a cover crop. If not, and you're only doing a few acres, you can either seed each crop in the blend separately or just accept a less than perfect spread seeding a blend at one time. We've chosen the latter route for now, and that's worked out fine so far. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
I will take action against herbicide-resistant weeds. I will know my weeds, and I will stop them before they go to seed. I will do whatever it takes to give my crops the upper hand, and I will use multiple herbicide sites of action because every action counts. I will take action, this time for all time.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
We know that the future is liquid. That's why Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers corporate sales force is the best trained, best equipped in the industry. Because our communications, our relationships, our ethics are as strong and as innovative as the products we design. That's why our customers trust us. Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers, helping you grow the future.
Experience matters in farming, and when it comes to efficient power, no one has more experience than Case IH. Our industry-leading SCR engine technology has powered over 35,000 pieces of equipment and has over 17 million operating hours in North America alone. It was the right solution from the start, and it's proving itself right again as our new generation of Tier 4B equipment takes to the field. Proven power, proven efficiency, proven in the field. Case IH. Be ready.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a SoilMax Gold Digger tile plow. SoilMax tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a SoilMax Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with SoilMax. Visit soilmax.com.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but for more agronomic information, we invite you to tune in to SiriusXM Radio. Darren and I do a live weekday program each day at 2 p.m. Central. That's on SiriusXM Channel 80. That's the Rural Radio channel.
And don't forget to tune in next time for another Ag PhD TV show where we've got a Weed of the Week, a Farm Basics Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Only 11.6 cents per dollar spent on food in America goes back to American farmers and agribusinesses. Where does the other 88.4% go, and what really raises food prices? Visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org to find out.